Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And welcome, Molly, and if you can help me with the roll call, I'd appreciate it.
Alderperson Henry.
Here.
Barrand.
Here.
Alderperson Valdy.
Here.
Alderperson Dean.
Here.
Alderperson Grimmer.
Here.
Alderperson Casson.
Here.
Alderperson Eicher. Mayor Atwell.
Present.
Administrator Hafner.
Here. Okay, great. We are going to go into 4A, Special Order of Business, presentation by Judge Hausman with an update regarding municipal court, followed by questions and answers with the Common Council. So welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, hopefully we have answers and we'll go from there. You have in front of you a summary of the court revenue for the last 3 years. And I think it's kind of important for a few moments to discuss how it is the way it is. And best you go back and take a look at the revenues for 2018. The revenues for 2018 at 175,000 gross compared to roughly 85,000 in 2020. We all know the reason, because starting in almost the beginning of the year in 2020, everything was basically shut down. The court operated solely by telephone. There were no open court sessions at all. There still has not been an open court session since February of 2020 was the last court time that I functioned in this room. Wow. It's worked out fine. The thing that people have to understand is, and I'm aware of what's happening in municipal courts from talking to my own judges from around the area, they're all affected by the same way. They've all been affected by their gross receipts being down because less people are driving, therefore less people are violating. And that's the simple answer to the question. Now, I talked to the chief and he said that it appeared that in 2021 that it's picking up again to be where we would hope it would be, but we're still going to have a lower amount of revenue, I would estimate, for 2021. And then I would think we'll be back on track. I did have the records from earlier years, and basically speaking, the gross of between 160 and 170 is about correct. And the rest of the numbers that are in there for the expenses are done by a percentage. Now, I also gave you a document, nicely colored, and this is what we give every person who receives a ticket at the time of the issuance of their ticket. As you can see, it requires the person to enter a plea of either no contest or not guilty. Now, maybe for you that do not understand the difference, I'll explain it. When you enter a no contest plea, you will be found guilty, but you will be not admitting to the guilt. There's a reason for that, for coverage purposes, insurance purposes, all kinds of reasons, but it's not a finding. You'll have a guilt entered in, a finding of guilty, but there will not be an admission of guilt. Many times when people get a ticket for something, whether it's a disorderly or something else, there could be a civil component to their offense that could later lead to a civil lawsuit. If it was a civil lawsuit, they could use the plea in this ticket against them if they pled like not guilty and were found guilty. Because when they plead not guilty and are found guilty, that's an admission, and that's the end of the ball game for them. So you get around that problem, and they're advised this by our city attorney that they have a choice. He does all of the people that have questions about this. We do it by telephone. We do not do it by him having people go to his law office and sit down with him. That was done years ago. But we got out of that a couple of years ago, and now he does all of that by telephone. So this basically then gives the people the ability to understand their choices, and whenever they have a question about it and they call my clerk, she'll say simply, call our city attorney. He'll be glad to talk to you on the telephone and explain what the differences are before you enter what type of a plea you want to enter. So that, I wanted everyone to see this, because this has been used by the city now and by the officers ever since, I want to say, March of last year, when we were totally shut down, and that's, well, like shut down, not operating in this room. One of the things that we are also looking into that you should know is there is a distinct possibility that in the next several months, we will go back to an open court situation if we have people who want to appear and talk. And the fact of the matter is, we're thinking of scheduling it on the first Monday like we do now, but not at 6 o'clock at night, but at 11 o'clock in the morning. What does that mean to you as far as money goes? Well, it saves overtime pay for people that have to be present from the city, overtime after 5 o'clock. And we find out that so many of the people that plead on these, it isn't necessary to worry about it. We can do it during regular working hours. So that's the reason why we are thinking of gearing this to, in August, starting at 11 o'clock on the first Monday.
Judge Hausman, why wasn't that done before? Why didn't we have proceedings at 11 if it saved overtime after 6?
Good question, Matthew. Don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
Maybe after 37 years of doing this job, it just never...
I'm not putting you on the spot.
No,
I'm just-
I just don't think anybody poked the bear.
Sure.
Thought about it.
Sure.
Because up until the last year and a half, we had a busy little room here on Monday nights.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's
Well, you
fine.
probably did it for the convenience of the accused. I would say people have day
It was
jobs
absolutely
and,
done for the convenience of the accused, so they wouldn't lose money from their jobs to have
Sure.
to be here.
Sure.
But now, since we do it all by telephone, and we do it, why not do it at 11 o'clock? Won't make any difference. And we don't have overtime situations or anything else. So I'm almost positive that starting in August, because all the tickets have been written out through the month of July, so we can't do it up through the month of July, we are probably going to adopt it immediately to be effective for August. Does everybody kind of understand how that's going?
When you say that you're going to have open court or have the ability to have open court, again, are people still going to be able to call in, or they will have
No, they
to?
will be able, they'll have the option to be able to call in, and when they sign this, until we get into the open court situation, they'll always have the ability to come here and explain whatever their problem is about why they don't think they should have got a ticket.
But they don't necessarily have to be present. They can call in and do it over the phone too?
That is correct.
Okay,
They just have to be accountable, one way or the other.
okay.
That's all we're asking. Other than that, I guess you're all laboring under the issue of costs. You're all laboring under the issue of limited revenue because of what's going on out there in the streets. I have done a little survey myself since I've been on this job a couple days, and it appears to me that one of the things that has to be taken into account is that if there ever was any consideration to thinking about turning down this court and moving it over to the Lake Country court system, I would suggest to you that you end up paying the ticket, the price for overtime, and the rest with the officers to go over there. They'd have no control over how the calendar would be run. You'd never know whether they're going to have a trial that day or not, because Lake Country encompasses about 12, maybe more municipalities in their system. It would become penny wise, pound foolish in order to try to say we don't really need this court. This court has always generated its livelihood, and may I say, I think we've answered for our responsibilities, and yet, on the other hand, I don't believe it would be in the best interest to consider wrapping it up after all these years and talking about going to Lake Country, because it would turn out that officers would be getting an awful lot of downtime over there sitting on their hands because they don't know when their case gets called or anything else. Anybody wants to see how Lake Country Court runs, just go over there, and it's a little bit similar to the Milwaukee Zoo. You just go over there and watch it operate. They get it done, God love them, but it isn't as user-friendly as I
That's
think
what I
we
was
are.
going to do.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I don't think it's that one. It's further over.
Judge, has Lisa or anybody checked with our staff about the availability of this room during the day on Mondays?
I asked my boss, Lisa, my
Yep.
my clerk that does all of this. She seemed to think that this was not going to be a problem. But again, where would I check?
The one place you might check is with the library. On occasion, they do use this room, so I would just talk to the library. And, but I'm going to guess that that's a very workable arrangement.
Okay, so the library is a possibility of using the room, but other than that,
Yeah, on occasion, they have speakers or events, and certainly not during COVID, but on occasion they do. And so I would just speak to Stephanie Ramirez, she's
Thanks,
the
Ms. Hadley, I
director, and
appreciate
she's
that.
wonderful, and they'll know.
okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Other than that, any other questions? You got a full agenda, guys, so I think I'll sign off. I think
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Thank you.
I hope that-
Thank you for the excellent job that you do.
Yeah, we appreciate
Take
it.
care.
And you.
Good night.
Okay, we will move on to number 5, approval of the minutes of May 3rd, 2021 for the regular meeting.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
That was Jackie and Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, now we'll move on to citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that would like to come forward and make a comment? Seeing none, do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to make a comment? No? Okay. Great, seeing no citizens' comments are now closed. We'll move on to number 7, the consent agenda, of which we appear to have nothing on the consent agenda. So we're moving right along to number 8, board, committees, and commission reports. 8A licenses. Are you taking that one, Molly, or?
So we have the alcohol licenses that are to be approved. They are in the packet. It's the standard renewals. There are some that are still outstanding, but we have a statutory obligation to approve by June 15th and issue by June 15th the licenses that had their paperwork completed by April 15th. So the list consists of those individuals who had all of their paperwork in and their payments done and are ready to go to be issued on the required date.
So you're looking for a motion and a second
Yes, sir.
to approve?
To approve the alcohol beverages licenses to be issued on June 15th pending the agent background checks.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alrighty, is there any discussion? It was Wayne and Phil. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, number 2.
So me, there's still one outstanding cigarette and tobacco product retail license from Pick and Save, but other than that, the standard group has completed their applications. They are presented in the packet. And again, they to be issued on June 15th.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
That was Matt and Phil. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Can we just confirm that was Matt,
Matt
and Phil?
Phil.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to 8B, Planning Commission. I see we don't have Mr. Iker here. I will refer you to the minutes. Is there anybody that had a particular question about something that took place during that meeting that I might be able to help answer? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, 8C, Lake Welfare Committee. Mr. Casson.
Thank you very much. Well, believe it or not, several things to comment on here. And the Sewer PAC has published the Lake Management Plan for Nagawicca. And the minutes for the meeting have just been posted as of today, so those are available. People can review those. We will start to take a look at the Sewer PAC published guide for lake management and start to take that apart and see what the lake actually, what is recommended by Sewer PAC. The other motions that were brought forward, there was 3 of them. One of them was there seemed to be some confusion as far as what the Lake Welfare Committee should be addressing as far as the proposed pier in St. John's Bay. I had made a motion actually to bring it back to the council And that motion failed, so I'm telling you that motion to bring that back failed. So it's kind of an oxymoron there. But here the second motion was to actually adopt some of the operational rules for hours and lighting on this pier. That had also passed. That is also going to be listed in the minutes. And the third motion to be listed, and this one was also passed, was a recommendation for the project in general.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, now, Molly, so if there isn't a name there, can I assume they did not meet and I should skip it? Great. Okay.
Minutes might have been posted, but no name. And
Library
so
board
if
did
it's
meet.
highlighted, then it
they
means.
did. Well, let's just be safe. We'll go through it just to be sure.
Alrighty.
So Park and Rec, Mr. Grimmer.
No
any
meeting
report?
since May 3rd.
Okay. Public Works.
Public Works, there was a meeting, and I missed it. I regret that I missed it because they were talking about paths. And so if you read the minutes, you'll see that they're trying to develop some kind of guidelines on what width paths should be and who's going to maintain them. And they didn't make any decisions, but if people are interested in that, they're going to be discussing it again at the next meeting. They're trying to get some kind of plan for paths done sometime this summer. So, for a proposal for people to comment on. So,
I have a question regarding paths. Like Public Works, I get that that's their thing, you know, the width and all of that. But are they then communicating with Parks and Rec regarding where the paths go, or how does that work?
Their discussion has been delayed until now because Park and Rec did issue their master plan, so
Gotcha.
they're kind of reacting to that, or the 5-year plan. And they're also reacting to things that have been put in the budget at this point. But they're trying to take a comprehensive approach to say, well, where are these things going to go when we're done? So
They're not
Using the Park
suggesting
and Rec
move
5-year
paths.
plan as the baseline.
no, well, the ones that are on the agenda are the things that have been proposed in budgets now. But ultimately, yeah, there's going to be some kind of guidelines on where they go next. So
Okay.
I am attending the next meeting.
Okay.
And I had a conflict, but I could have really gotten rid of it if I knew that they were going to, they spent a lot of time talking on it. So
Yeah. Okay, is that the end of that report?
that's it.
Okay, great. Okay, Delahart. Again, Mr. Eicher's not here. Wayne, did you attend by chance? Did they have
Yeah,
a
next
meeting?
meeting is tomorrow night at 5.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, Police Commission. Phil, you're up again.
Thank you. Several things were brought up. The annual police chief's report was brought up. He discussed the lethality assessment program that's going to be continued. It's a domestic violence intervention program, as well as the Help Not Handcuffs program. There's going to be continuation of that. It seems to be in decrease a little bit, but that will be continuing. That's for individuals who wish to seek voluntary treatment of addiction. As we were told several months back, they have changed the reporting status. The incident-based reporting was implemented at the beginning of the year as opposed to the other system we were using. He explained there was differences in the data collection and the validation procedures. No significant increase in crime, however, reduction in clearance rates exists as a result of the new system. The total number of incidents increased in 2020. No grievances, no internal affairs. Ride-along requests will be starting up again. So for anybody interested in that, I know I'll be getting my name on the list. Chief Kale had mentioned that there's 4 pursuits in the last year. And the other thing they had done is 2 motions for new hires. And the new hires did accept their offers of employment and will begin June 1st and June 7th. These positions did become available and open after the discussion of the city referendum was discussed. So one person had decided to retire so others wouldn't have to be impacted as greatly. And multiple police officers from our department had actually also applied at several other departments in the area. And one of them actually took up an offer. I don't know which department, but did move on. So those are the two replacements. There's also some anticipated upcoming retirements. That is it.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, library board.
That's
Sally.
us. We met last Tuesday, May 11th, and a few things that I'd like to highlight. One is the library has an app through the Bridges library system. I think it's a little dangerous because you can reserve books, put holds on things, and keep track of your account. It's really wonderful. But yeah, it feeds the addiction, which is a good thing. The library is thrilled to welcome a new head of youth services, children's librarian, Andrea Bisorti. She starts a week from today. And we're pretty excited. She was, I think, in the Pewaukee Library, and so we're lucky to have her. And the library has, sorry, my computer is doing things. The library has begun the process of planning in-person programs for adults. In June, they're going to be hosting some of the really popular technology boot camps for seniors. Spaces are limited, and right now, this very moment, the library committee is meeting to discuss the mask situation, because up until last Thursday, we met just, on Tuesday, we were maintaining the use of masks, and so there's a discussion going on right now, so stay tuned, and you can go to the library website to see what comes up off of that. But spaces will fill for that program, and just about all of them, very quickly. Also, the summer reading program, my favorite word, summer, is coming up. Sign-up start on for people on June 14th for all ages. So even old people can do it like me, and it's kind of fun. I read a lot in the summer because I can. So their next outdoor movie is Saturday, June 5th. Enjoy, they had one the first Saturday in May, and if you recall, it was one of those glorious summer-like days, and it was quite a success. So they're doing another one Saturday, June 5th. You'll enjoy an outdoor movie in the library's back parking lot from the comfort of your car, using your car's radio. It's pretty cool. And the movie is The Lorax. So that's it for now. The next meeting is June 8th. 6:30. That will be likely the last Zoom library meeting. We are going to discuss then going back to three-dimensional meetings.
Great, well, thank you very much. Okay, I believe there was no meeting for Zoning Board of Appeals, Promotion and Tourism. Mr. Barron.
Well, I guess the good news is the hotels are starting to see an uptick in business. And the manager from Holiday Inn, who's on the committee, reported for the first time in a long time he was full on a Monday night.
Yay.
And that's business travelers.
Yeah.
So our business is still coming from the region. That's where people are traveling within, near home, and so our marketing that we're opening up with is focusing on the Chicago area. But we're not spending the kind of money we used to spend because we still don't have that coming in. St. John's Military reports that they have graduation the 27th, 28th, 29th of May. That's always an alumni reunion. He says we probably will fill all the hotels just with our people. So, so Delafield will be quite busy, and they used to spread graduation out and the reunions out. They're all on those 3 days. So if you notice it, they'll be here. There's minutes with all sorts of other things. But
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, Lake Country Fire and Rescue, did they meet?
Not since May 3rd.
Okay. And I assume the board did not as well. All right. Unfinished business, we have none. Number 10, Mayor's Report. So I have an item here, discussion possible action to waive the $50 application fee for All-American Legion Post 196 and Delafield Lion nonprofit events such as the 4th of July Parade, duck races, car show, and similar events. These groups are 100% volunteers. They have no paid employees. 100% of the funding that they raise from these events goes to charity. And certainly if there's any above and beyond costs where they need police help or these types of things, obviously they'd be responsible for that. This is simply the $50 application fee that I'd like the council's input and possible motion to waive.
I'll make a motion to waive that fee.
I'll second. I think it's important to note that I support it because these folks are giving back to the city in a very tangible, identifiable way, i.e. car show, 4th of July parade specifically. And that's why we make the exception. That's why I make the exception.
All right, is there any discussion?
How many events do they typically have in a year? Like how many have they in the
Where
past?
they need an event permit?
Right.
For the 4th of July and the duck race, I believe, are typically the only ones for the Legion. They did start a new event this year where they're having a rock for the vets, I believe, also required a $50 fee. The Lions do the car show, which is the only event that would require the $50 fee. But if you're unaware, Lake Country Women's Club is disbanding, and this will be the last year for the Lake Country Art Show that's held in Nagawaki Park. They typically pull one, but it appears that the Lions are probably going to take that over and run that event in 2022. So
Okay, so we're taking like
we're talking
4 or
3-4
5.
events.
Okay.
Yep.
Jim, is your motion only for these two nonprofits or for all nonprofits that we would waive?
My motion would be for the nonprofits that the mayor was referring to.
Only
Yeah.
these two, only the Lions Club and American Legion, or all nonprofits were waived?
No, it was these two.
I guess my only question is, I'm happy to support this motion, by the way. My other question is, why do we charge any nonprofits?
It's a check on the application form. It's a $50 fee for anybody that applies. And in these particular cases, with these particular ones, they're the only nonprofits that submit event ones. That's why I thought it was important that we have the discussion to see if the council would agree to waive them.
Well, I think since this is the discussion and the motion, we support it and maybe consider down the road a consideration of nonprofits in general. I mean, I don't know, it's just a thought.
Or Delafield-based nonprofits,
Right.
like like our local nonprofits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Park and
I think that would be.
Park and Rec has made a similar exception, but we have the expectation that it be a tangible benefit to the city of Delafield. We have lots of nonprofits that come and are raising money for cancer or this issue or that issue, and not to say that those aren't worthy, but there is a cost associated with the application and processing it, and there isn't necessarily a direct benefit to the city.
Okay.
There's other other fee schedules for if somebody rented it for some other purpose, correct?
This is just an
$50?
application fee for an event. That's all we're talking about here. It's a one-time fee for each event, $50.
No matter who makes the application, it's $50.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great, thank you. Okay, new business. 11A, award of 2021 tree planting program contract in the amount of $19,660 to the Property Solutions Contracting LLC, contingent on approval by the tree board. Tom or Matt? Not sure.
No, that would be me. I mean, the agenda item pretty much says it all. We are recommending contract award to Property Solutions in the amount of $19,660. We were pleased with the bids that we received, and the council would be making a motion contingent upon tree board approval at their meeting at the end of the month.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Alrighty, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to 11B. approval of agreement to provide assessor services to the city of Delafield with Magna Assessment Services Incorporated for calendar years 2021 and 2022, with an annual compensation in the amount of $32,279.19 for 2021 and $32,601.96 for 2022. That one I know is yours, Tom.
Yeah, this contract is for Cal Magnan's standard services that he provides on an annual basis. The costs represent a 1.5% increase for 2021 and a 1% increase in 2022, and we recommend approval.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
How long have we been with Magnum and Associates? Seems like forever.
No?
I would guess it's been around 2013 or 2014 would be my guess about when we've been using them. But long before that, we had previously used them as well.
There was somebody in between that caused us a lot of headaches. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, 11C, approval to conduct a 2022 market assessment update to the city of Delafield and approval of agreement to provide 2022 market assessment update to the city of Delafield with Magna Assessment Services Incorporated with the compensation in the amount of $42,800. Tom?
Yeah, I had hoped Cal would be able to be here tonight to talk this item through with you, but he had a board of review for another municipality tonight. But Cal is recommending a reval for the city to go into effect next year. And he is proposing to start that work this year, but not bill the city for it until next year. And this would be a complete recalibration of the valuation models where he could fully incorporate all the sales of properties and apply them to all other properties in the city. It's gotten to the point where our assessment ratios are to the point where we do need to do this, and the contract is in the amount of $42,800.
So is this in the budget?
Well, if you approve it tonight, you're basically committing to putting into the 2022 budget.
It couldn't be a capital item? Just ask.
We could put it in the capital
I
budget.
mean, it's one of these creative, that it has a life of at least 5 to 10 years.
Well, we borrow for 10 years. The expectancy is things in the capital budget will last 10 years. I think this is about 10 years since our last reval, but that's not typical. Typically, revals are done more frequently than that.
I'm not advocating it, it's just that to ask the question. I like to pay as you go. But
Just so you're aware, our ratios are out of the
Oh, I
recommended
know.
zone. I mean,
The
it's
state's
not like we
gonna
really have a choice.
we don't have a choice, maybe it's within a year, but I know within another year or two. If we don't do it, they'll do it and bill us.
Now, from a budget perspective, I like the idea of putting into the capital budget, but we'll put some thought into that and see how we propose the budget, and then we can talk about it further during the budget discussions this fall.
Sounds good.
Do you need a motion?
Yep.
I'll make the motion to approve that, the reassessment contract as noted in 11C.
I'll second that.
Alrighty, is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay. 11D, discussion and possible action as requested by Alderman Kaysen regarding coordination between and updates to the Common Council from the Lake Welfare Committee, Park and Rec Commission, and Economic Development Focus Group regarding the proposed public boat pier in St. John's Bay.
Thank you, Ken. I asked for this evening just to make sure we're all on the same page. When the St. John's Pier project came up, I had gone in front of the Park and Rec Commission, just said I look forward to working with you to try and make sure everybody's on the same page. So as few things as possible are overlooked. For example, as I mentioned before, some operational procedures have been passed into motion by the Lake Welfare Committee, but because the pier is over water, that's one committee, and you have to get to the pier, so you're going through the park. So the Lake Welfare Committee is starting to recommend things that I don't think we really have any authority over because they are park and rec. Signage, allowing cars to drive down to the pier to drop off somebody for ADA purposes. I just wanted to try and bring people together because I know it's also been discussed in the economic focus group to see where we are with things, that just to try and coordinate to make sure things are properly addressed for the neighbors community, to make sure that any concerns with the DNR are properly addressed. So if it's felt that we're doing fine, I guess there's no discussion, but I just want to make sure we're collaborating.
It's a good idea. It's a good discussion to have. Would it be rational and consistent with good government and practice to refer the items that have passed Lake Welfare to Park and Rec for their comment and for their discussion and debate and approval, i.e. signage, parking, operational procedures?
And that's actually one reason I brought it up. I'm not sure if there's an automatic item that kicks things into other committees, and what would that be? So,
but couldn't you make the motion to pass those to Park and Rec for their consideration?
Since I've never heard that done in any of the committees I've been to, I was unfamiliar with that. So
I just made it. I didn't make it up. I just
So that's why I brought it up.
No, I think that's a good policy. I think that probably needs to happen more. It's not something that Park and Rec necessarily does, and kicks something to Public Works all too often. But I think that can be an effective way to collaborate between committees.
I think it's a really good idea. And if you recall, it was not too long ago where there was discussion about moving a sign. And if memory serves, it was Lake Welfare talking about moving the sign because the sign dealt with invasive species, am I right?
Correct.
But Park and Rec took exception to that because it was on Park and Rec property. And I think this sort of motion might help prevent that sort of, there is overlap. There's always going to be overlap. And so I think there needs to be, the silos. We need to get rid of the silos and build bridges between the committees at times, especially with something like this.
And I just really want to emphasize the communication between them because one of the things that was brought up in the Lake Welfare Committee was that it was unanimously adopted by the Park and Rec as a part of the 5-year plan. I had brought that up that actually it was not a separate vote. It was a part of the 5-year plan, true, but it was not voted on separately. And as a matter of fact, according to the Park and Rec plan, it says they would consider, evaluate, and conduct a due diligent inquiry into the potential installation of the boat slips for the pier and boat access along St. John's. It also says down below that they would consider alternatives to connecting it, and that was not clear in the agenda, in the materials provided to my committee. So that didn't, what I said didn't carry a whole lot of weight in those miscommunications.
No, but it's an important point. What was passed unanimously was the overall plan, and specifically what was passed in that plan was a due diligence study of the feasibility, not actually building the pier. And there's a big difference. But the Lake Welfare read it as, oh, we're going to do this, so let's talk about this part of it. And that's when we get into some problems, I think.
Yes.
And I think it's important to remind every committee that final say in jurisdiction is at the Common Council level.
Mm-hmm.
True. I brought
because I'm sorry to interrupt. Because because this has been mentioned in the past, there are last budget cycle. This is not necessarily someone's backyard, but there are people that are going to benefit, and then there are people that obviously that live around there that may not want any kind of traffic on that St. John's Pond.
Okay, so my understanding though is that Lake Welfare right now is currently going through and trying to work out details to give a proposal to the council. So
No,
that's not what's happening?
That's what I was trying to bring up to them.
Because I was at those meetings, and that's what I mean, that's what I thought was happening.
Phil, aren't you on the committee?
Yeah, no, I know, but that's
the
what I
direction
was there,
right.
and was my
And I had reiterated last meeting that I thought we had wanted a feasibility, and a consideration from the committee, and an ultimate recommendation from that committee. And at the last committee meeting, I was told by others that no, that's not what it's for. We were just supposed to be looking at operationally things that would be regarding
And
the
that
operation.
direction came from the council at the budget meeting, asking Lake Welfare in the month of June by July to talk about the operational feasibility of a pier in that location. So that was their main issue, that's what they discussed. And certainly, I think it's also a good idea to have Park and Rec review those operational guidelines that the Lake Welfare Committee came up with to get concurrence or tweaks if necessary on those guidelines from Park and Rec.
Well, that's why I
Agreed.
wanted to bring it up at the Lake Welfare meeting, was because I misunderstood the vote we took at our council meeting last November then, because I thought it was to designate those funds should it actually be a feasible and good idea and get the recommendation. So since it was only delegated to the Lake Welfare Committee, I thought that was going to be the obligation of that committee.
So I don't understand what is Lake Welfare doing with it then?
Well, they recommended operational guidelines.
Right, well,
Right.
that's what
That's what
I
they
just
did.
said, but
Yeah.
he just said that's not what they were doing.
Operational guidelines, yes, but as far as actually recommending whether it's a good idea or not, Lake Welfare was the only committee that was specifically
Right, but I
identified
thought
to look at it.
that they're.
Well, they voted on that issue
Yeah, they already- I
again,
mean-
which they'd voted on previously.
No, I'm sorry, my understanding was that they were coming up with the operational feasibility, they were coming up with what the operational plans for it would be, not whether or not we were approving it. And then they were gonna bring that back to the council, and we were going to be deciding whether or not to approve it.
That's why I wanted clarification from the council, because it also says in the 5-year plan that Park and Rec, as I just said, would wind up, they said they approved consideration, evaluation of due diligence. And that's what I thought Lake Welfare was doing, and if that's my error, that's my error. But I was looking for clarification, and one hand thinks the other hand is doing it. That's where I'm concerned.
Part of the consideration of Park and Rec was some members wanted to consider alternatives to the location, i.e. Bleecker Street. Did I say? Yeah, Bleecker Street, I think, was one of them.
Oak Park.
Oak Brook, yeah, was the other.
Right.
So I don't understand what are you asking for then right now?
Well, where I see it kind of hanging right now is Park and Rec in the 5-year plan has asked for that inquiry of due diligence. And I just don't know if that's occurring at Park and Rec, because I just wanted to report that it's definitely not going to be in Lake Welfare. So I just wanted to make sure that that is going to be happening, so.
If you could, in the next Lake Welfare, or you don't even have to, I'll add this to the Park and Rec agenda. Whatever recommendations on operations come out of Lake Welfare, I will ask the chair to add it to the next Park and Rec meeting for discussion and possible action.
For the
That sounds
operational
perfect.
things. Okay. Will the inquiry for due diligence also be brought up?
What guidelines are you looking for due diligence? Like what specifically are you, when you say the due diligence, because my understanding was that's what Lake Welfare was doing right now. So what specifically are you looking for when you say due diligence?
Due diligence would be looking at actually having diagrams of where it would be placed and actual size. The diagrams that we were given are actually not to scale. One of the concerns with DNR is that it can't impact public
Spawn.
rights or neighboring riparian rights. The pier that's in the diagram that we have is actually considerably shorter than it should be. It should probably be about another 50% longer, wider, side to side, not reaching out into the lake. But that should be longer, and I just was, that's one of the things I wanted to, because of the neighbors right next door, it actually is going to be encroaching upon their pier area if it's actually to size. So I was just looking for plans like that. It's also concern of the DNR that it doesn't exceed the 3-foot, and I don't have the exact wording, don't own a pier.
It's in full compliance, Phil, with the pier planner that the DNR puts out.
Well, no, we want to know specifically. I'm very uncomfortable with it because it's like a whack-a-mole thing. Something pops up here, and something pops up here, and then something pops up over here. And what I think Phil is asking for is a little more coordination, because it is clear that there are some people who really want this, and it's clear there are many people who equally do not. So the least thing we can do is specifically look at scale drawings, not something that's just given to us that, oh, we can make it bigger, smaller. Specifics and coordination. I don't think that's asking too much. I really believe that anything worth doing is worth doing well. And we need to make sure that we're looking at this thing with, as is in the park 5-year plan, with due diligence, which means specifics. I kayak that bay and the whole lake, the perimeter, on a regular basis, and it is mucky, and it is full of fish that are spawning, and folks with their pontoons docking up there is going to interrupt a whole lot of nature, at least my worries. So I always like to, as they say in carpentry and sewing, measure twice, cut once. Don't start off on something. It just feels like it's being put in other places. It keeps coming up.
Due diligence would also include, I've heard multiple things from different people regarding Chief Keel's level of comfort with being put in there. Currently, it says no trespassing, basically. It said no vehicles beyond this point. And then there's another sign later on down closer to their boathouse, basically to give an indication you shouldn't be there. I've actually been directed by a police officer. I was asked why I was there. And I've heard from one person that Officer Keel said that's fine, and another person said he is absolutely not fine with it. So I think due diligence would be a statement provided to the committee by Sheriff Keel, just what is the decision. So it's
Will the pier be in the way of the police operation?
No.
I don't think it should be, but I'm just
Is that your
making that
question?
statement.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know that that's.
I don't know.
So
When I hear due diligence, I'm thinking, okay, addressing all of the different issues, which the Lake Welfare Committee is doing right now. They talked about this at the meeting too. They said that people will not be parking down there, that it's access for ADA compliance reasons, but people aren't going to be parking down there. I mean, they talked about these things at that meeting. It was there, and I heard these things. So, I mean, I understand the wanting to have scale drawings, and I get that. There's a point to do that, but they're working through all of these things, and I think we need to allow Lake Welfare to do that. I think it should be going over to Parks and Rec to review once they've worked through, had the chance to do that. But I don't know what you're asking for above what they're already doing.
I think the point.
And you're on the committee,
Right.
what you're already doing.
I think the point is clear with the fact that they made two separate motions. One was to adopt operational rules regarding lighting and hours, and the second motion they passed was the recommendation for the pier, which had not previously happened. And that's when I say feasibility or looking for due diligence, it's looking at the recommendation, which they've now given. But I just wanted to make sure that that was being taking into consideration as many people as possible. It's a small project. It is. It's only $30,000 probably. But at the same time, if it's been talked about for so long and it impacts some people so directly, it's actually a big project.
But wasn't the plan that they were going to take the summer and have this all prepared and ready before we get into budget discussions? I mean, that was what I got, is that they were going to spend the summer discussing this and working it all out so that we would have the finished proposal before the budget discussions. So we could decide whether or not we were going to put it in next year's budget.
Things haven't been as clear as I'm not, I'll just phrase it this way, I'm not as comfortable with the lack of clarity on some things. We had asked that it be for pontoon boats, and that was dismissed by the committee. So those kinds of things. Just looking for clarity on some of these things.
Yeah.
So That, I think, should have been included in a separate motion, whether they would recommend the pier or not. That's not an operational thing per se. Is it a good idea to have the pier in the first place? That is what I was trying to address.
But, so you're asking for us to decide whether or not we should have the pier at all?
No, not at
No, no,
all.
no.
You're
I'm just-
asking for coordination, right?
Yeah, I just
Just like
wanna
more
make sure-
communication.
Yeah, lake welfare, I just want to make sure everybody knew that lake welfare, on which I'm a part of, correct, is no longer looking at, is it a good idea or not? They're just moving on to operational
Right,
considerations.
which is what they're doing, right?
Correct.
And when they're done with those considerations,
And then
that
forward
should
those
go
to Park and
to
Rec.
Parks
Goes to
Park and
Rec.
Rec will review and provide our
Okay.
input.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know where Economic Development Committee comes into this. I wouldn't suggest that they get involved. I wouldn't know where they're,
There's only been one meeting so far, correct? Or was it? And I was not able to attend, but it was my understanding it wound up coming up, and
It came up
I don't-
multiple times.
So-
is there value in getting them involved in this issue? I don't see their scope within,
They're focused on
Right.
what they're focused on. This is
right.
right? Okay.
not in there.
Just so that's clear, that they're not.
Okay.
Okay, great. We will move on to 12, report of city officials. City administrator.
Yeah, the first thing I just wanted to talk,
I think you skipped,
what's that?
Missed E.
you skipped E.
Oh, E.
Oh, did I miss E? Oh, I'm sorry. Approval of vouchers payable reports, reporting date 5/4/2021, 5/17/2021, in the amount of $72,007.31 for accounts payable and $69,120.07 for payroll.
I move to approve the voucher list.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Motion passes. All right. Reports of city officials.
Yeah, the first item I want to discuss is at last council meeting, Mary Daniel, during citizens' comments, had a series of questions regarding some past budgetary issues. The first question was regarding the 2017 capital projects and why there were some projects still being shown as open in our system. I did put together a memo that covers all this, but to briefly go through it, the first project was the Bark River Stream Bank restoration project, and that came with a 3-year maintenance contract, and this will be the last year of that 3-year maintenance period. So we still have payments due to the contractor for the maintenance, and then when that's done, there will be retainage released and the project can be closed. The next project was the burying of the existing water pipe under the Bark River, and that is a project that is complete and can be closed, and we will do that. The St. John's Park expansion project, that remains open pending the finalization of a change order. We worked out an agreement with the contractor where he was going to provide us a credit to be used towards those maintenance efforts because he's also the contractor on that other project. And then he's also forfeiting the retainage, the remaining retainage. So we need to get that paperwork finalized and then that project will be closed. The next one was a VMR signage project. There was 2 signs in the budget. One of those has been installed, the Paul Sangren Trail sign. Then there was another sign on the VMR itself, and that one has not been installed. So I will coordinate with the Park and Rec Commission and find out the status of that and see where we're at with that. And then lastly, with the water utility, there was a building security upgrade project, and that is mostly done, but there's one issue remaining with regards to a connectivity issue with internet at well number 1. So we anticipate that that will be resolved soon and we'll be able to be closed at that time. The next question was based on the treasurer's report from the last council meeting, and the treasurer's report showed the open projects from the past, and from that report it appeared as if there was a $19,000 deficit for our 2017 capital projects. However, that report only showed the projects that were still open, and in the memo that I provided to you, I show a listing of all of the projects from the 2017 capital budget. And in total, we're currently about $107,000 under budget with the 2017 capital projects. With the projects that remain to be closed with release of retainage and stuff, we'll probably spend another $20,000, but yet we will still be probably somewhere in the $80,000 to $90,000 under budget in total for the 2017 capital budget. And then lastly, there was a question about the Nagawicka Road separated path project, and it appeared that it was $65,000 over budget. That is in fact true. We knew that that project was over budget when the bids came in. That was discussed at the July Public Works meeting and the July Common Council meeting when the project was awarded. There's a memo in your packet that was also in the packets of those past meetings when those were awarded. And it identified where we were making a recommendation to the council that the streets improvement program was significantly under budget, and that provided us the ability to be over budget in this project. And the Common Council awarded the project based on that. That was based on anticipated costs. Actual costs with the street improvement program actually came in about $27,000, even further less than what we had expected. The Nagawicka Road path came in about $12,000 higher than what we expected. But in all total, between those two projects, we expect to end up about $60,000 under budget. So any questions about those items?
I couldn't hear you. Did you say 16 or 60? 16 or 60?
60.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
I understand that like these projects are complicated and over time and you can't, know. So I appreciate the details, frankly. I love Mary for seeing it. It's really helpful, but it just clarifies things,
Absolutely.
And then we can learn. Oh, okay, we get that. So it helps us understand like all the balls you have in the air that you're juggling all the time. It's not an easy task. So thank you, because that took some
I
time.
will say that
You're welcome.
at the county level, they routinely review all the project status, and they handle it exactly the same way, where they have some right to offset within a year because they've issued the bonds based for a certain amount.
Right.
But there are some that go back 7, 8 years. It's frustrating for members of the board to see some of that because they would prefer to see this stuff closed up.
Jim, I can't hear you real well.
It's frustrating sometimes for members of the county board in the past to see projects that are 7 or 8 years old or even 10 years old not closed. But the bigger policy thing is that if there's stuff that's still open where there's a benefit to the government to continue to keep it open, to either hold someone's feet to the fire or they've saved some money somewhere, but they extended the life, when to do it. But I think it's helpful to look at this from time to time, and especially when anyone asks a question.
Absolutely.
Because it's an important part of what we do, and it's something we do over time, so no one remembers from year to year.
Trust me, when Mary brought this up, I'm like, God, I know there's an answer to this, but I can't remember what it is. And it
Thanks a lot.
takes a little bit of
Yeah,
research
yeah.
to go back and remember.
Sure it does.
Tom, thank you.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you. You can find the answer and I can't, so.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Okay, a couple other things I just wanted to go over under my report. The next Economic Development Focus Group meeting is next week, Wednesday, May 25th, 6:30 in this room. So if you have any interest in that, please feel welcome to attend.
I do want to point a correction. It's the 25th is a
I was
Tuesday.
gonna say,
Yeah.
What did I say?
Wednesday.
You're correct, it's a
Yeah.
Tuesday. Tuesday. Next item, Phil Casson asked me to provide a brief update. The Citizen Volunteer Recognition Committee that the council approved is going to be put on hold for a couple months. We found out that as a subunit of the Common Council, it needs to be ran as any regular public meeting. So there'll be staff responsibilities for staffing that. And we're going to put it on hold for a couple months so that the new clerk can settle into her job and that the staff can focus on the additional meetings of the Economic Development Focus Group before we move on to this group's meetings. National Public Works Week is this week. The guys do a lot of good work for the community. They work really hard. They're very dedicated. They are on call at all hours of the day, no matter if it's a holiday or in the middle of the night or whatnot. And so I would just encourage you, if you see the Public Works employees out and about this week, give them an extra special pat on the back and a thank you. So
I just want to mention that
Here,
they
here.
can look for some cookies from me coming.
they won't object to that. And then lastly, Jackie mentioned summer's around the corner, and we got a press release from the county today letting us know that the county beaches will be opening up. The Naguawake beach will be opening up on May 28th.
Getting that much closer to normal.
Yep. And that's all I've got this evening.
Great, thank you, Tom.
Tom.
You're welcome.
Molly, any report?
Yeah, nothing.
Sounds good, thank you. City Treasurer. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that one.
Norfolk.
Okay. D, council requests for future agenda items. Seeing none? Okay, I'll refer you to correspondence, and the meeting is now adjourned, seeing no further business at 8:01. Thank you for coming or being online.
Thank you, thank you.